So apparently some ex-wives think they can run the perfect wedding scam on their former husbands. But this father was about to expose everything in the most hilarious way possible. Welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a woman who guilt trips her ex-husband into paying 15 grand for a wedding, while secretly collecting 30,000 from relatives for the exact same expenses. This dad doesn't just figure out the scam. He teaches her a lesson in respect and makes her regret ever stealing from him. Real quick though, if you're enjoying what we do here, consider liking and subscribing. It genuinely helps us out. All right, let's dive in. The call from my ex-wife came on a Tuesday afternoon, right as I was finishing a quarterly report that was already 3 days late. I knew it was Olivia before I even looked. After all these years, my gut still clenched whenever her name popped up on my phone. "Michael," she said with that sweetness she only used when she wanted something. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Just work," I said, saving the spreadsheet and pushing back from my desk. "Everything okay with Sophia?" "She's wonderful. Working too hard as usual, but that's our girl." She went quiet for a second, and I could practically hear her thinking about what to say next. "Listen, I need to talk to you about the wedding." I tensed up. For the past 6 months, I'd gotten random updates about places they looked at and dresses Sophia tried on, always after they'd already made up their minds. Every time I offered to help plan, I got brushed off with some line about how they had it all under control. What about it? I tried to sound casual. "Well, there have been some changes to what we originally wanted." Her tone got softer, the way it always did when she was about to drop a problem in my lap. "The garden place fell through, something about renovation delays, so we had to switch to the Grand Harbor Hotel." The Grand Harbor was one of the fanciest wedding spots in Boston. Even with my limited knowledge of this stuff, I knew it wasn't anywhere near the same price range as the garden Sophia had talked about before. "That sounds like quite an upgrade," I said. "It wasn't our first choice, but it was all we could find on short notice. And then there's the guest list. Daniel's family added more people than we expected, and we couldn't exactly say no. How many are we talking about now?" "About 150, up from the original 50. I did some quick math in my head. 3 times the guests at what was definitely a much pricier venue. "That's a lot more," I said, my financial analyst brain already running the numbers. "It's gotten completely out of hand, Michael." She almost whispered now. "I'm trying to give Sophia the day she wants, but I can't stretch my budget any further. I've put in everything I can, but it's not enough." There it was, the real reason she called. "How much are you short?" I asked, already grabbing a pen. 15,000 would cover the gap. She rushed through it like saying it faster would make it sound smaller. I almost spit out my coffee. $15,000? I wouldn't ask if I had any other option. You know that. She started sounding hurt, that old trick that used to make me doubt myself. "This is for Sophia, not me." "I get that, but that's a ton of money with zero warning. Why am I just hearing about this now?" "I didn't want to worry you. I thought I could handle it, but with the new place and everything else. Please, Michael, I don't want to let our daughter down." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The guilt trip was so familiar, as if questioning her meant I was disappointing Sophia. But this was about our daughter's wedding, and no matter how I felt about Olivia, I wanted the day to be special. "Let me think about it," I said finally. "I need to check my accounts." "We don't have much time. The final deposits are due next week." "I'll call you in a couple of days," I promised, already mentally moving money around in my head. After hanging up, I stared at the spreadsheet on my screen, its neat columns and formulas making way more sense than the conversation I'd just had. Something didn't add up, but I couldn't put my finger on what. Maybe it was just the usual headache that came with talking to Olivia. 2 days later, I met Sophia for our monthly dinner at Giovanni's, the Italian place halfway between my condo and her apartment. When she walked in smiling, I couldn't help but feel proud. At least I'd done one thing right in my life. "Dad!" She hugged me tight, and I caught a whiff of her shampoo. Same brand since high school. Instantly reminded me of those crack-of-dawn drives to swim practice. "You look so happy," I said, as we slid into our booth. "Why wouldn't I be? I'm marrying the most amazing guy in 3 months. I just landed that sustainable housing project I told you about, and they've got tiramisu on special tonight." She grinned as she unfolded her napkin. "Sounds like you're on a roll." After ordering, Sophia couldn't stop talking about wedding details. She went through centerpieces and music with the same focus she brought to her work. I nodded along, watching for any signs she was stressed about money, but didn't see any. "The Grand Harbor's a big change from that garden place," I said when she finally paused for breath. "It wasn't our first choice, but Mom found it after the garden fell through. Just wait till you see the ballroom, Dad." The ceiling reminds me of that cathedral we saw in Montreal, with all those amazing details. That's gotta cost a lot more, I said, trying to sound casual. Sophia shrugged. Probably, but Mom told me not to worry about it. She's taking care of all the money stuff. She gave me a curious look. Why? Did she say something to you? I hesitated, not wanting to cause trouble if Olivia was hiding money problems to protect Sophia. Just wondering about the details. So is the guest list bigger now, too? Yeah, mostly from Daniel's side. His dad's colleagues and family friends. Daniel feels bad about it, but his parents have been so supportive, we couldn't really say no. She took a sip of her wine. Everyone's been super generous. Daniel's parents are covering the rehearsal dinner, Aunt Madison sent a nice card with a check, and Uncle William even called to say he was investing in our happiness. I stopped eating for a second. So there've been a lot of family members chipping in? Sophia nodded eagerly. It's been amazing. Mom says she's never seen the family come together like this before. Makes me feel really loved, Did your mom say anything about money problems with the wedding? I asked, trying to sound casual. She looked confused. No, why would she? Is something wrong? No, nothing's wrong, I said quickly. Just checking that everything's going smoothly. Better than smoothly, Mom's got everything under control. Sophia smiled brightly. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you about the cake tasting. Daniel and I totally disagreed on flavors, which Mom said is the first real test of our marriage. As Sophia kept talking, I couldn't stop thinking about it. If Olivia had been getting so much money from family members, why was she telling me she was broke? Something seemed off, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to ruin Sophia's happiness with what might just be a misunderstanding. The next morning at the office, I was going through client files when Ethan showed up at my door with a coffee. You look like hell, he said, dropping into the chair across from my desk. Wedding stuff on my mind, I told him. The joys of being the father of the bride. Checkbook open, mouth shut. He grinned, then got more serious. For real, though, it's cool what Olivia's doing with the collection. Makes it feel like everyone's pitching in. I tried not to react. The collection? For the wedding fund. Ethan gave me a weird look. Olivia didn't tell you? She called me last week, said she was asking family to help make Sophia's big day perfect. I gave her $1,000. Thought you knew about it. My stomach dropped. Right, yeah, just didn't know she'd asked so many people. Sounds like she's called basically everyone. Said she wanted to surprise Sophia with how much the family was backing her. He shrugged. Pretty smart, actually. Yeah, smart, I agreed, while my thoughts raced. What exactly did she say the money was for? Just that wedding costs had gone up with venue changes and the bigger guest list. Said she was setting up a fund so Sophia wouldn't have to cut corners on her dream day. Ethan watched me closely. You really didn't know about this? We didn't get into the details, I said vaguely. But it's fine. I'm grateful for everyone's help. After Ethan left, I just sat there staring blankly at my computer screen. Something wasn't adding up. Olivia had hit me up for $15,000 claiming money troubles, while at the same time collecting what sounded like serious cash from other relatives. And Sophia didn't seem to know anything about financial problems. I grabbed my phone and called my Aunt Madison, who lived across town. Michael, she answered warmly. I was just thinking about you. How are the wedding preparations going? That's actually why I'm calling, I said. I wanted to thank you for your gift. Oh, it was my pleasure. Not every day my grandniece gets married. $2,000 isn't much, but it was what I could manage on my pension. I was stunned. $2,000 was a lot for Madison, who lived carefully on her teacher's retirement. That's incredibly generous. Sophia will be so touched. Well, Olivia told me about the venue change and how cost had gone up, and I wanted to help. She mentioned you were chipping in too, but with alimony and everything else, she didn't want to ask too much of you. I had to hold my tongue. My alimony payments had stopped 3 years ago according to our divorce agreement. Did Olivia mention the total wedding cost? I asked. She didn't give an exact number, but she did say they were about $15,000 short after switching venues. I got the feeling she was calling several family members to make up the difference. $15,000, exactly what she'd asked from me alone. After hanging up with Madison, I called 2 more people. My cousin Emma had put in $1,500 when Olivia told her they needed help, covering the basics. Then my Uncle William mentioned he'd given $3,000 because Olivia said they were struggling to meet the expectations of Sophia's future in-laws. By the time I hung up the phone, I knew Olivia had gotten at least $7,500 from just 4 family members. She told each of us a different story about why they needed money. And according to Sophia, there were even more people who'd chipped in that I didn't know about yet. I slumped back in my chair, trying to make sense of it all. Olivia was going from one family member to another, making each of us think our money was saving the day. Yet somehow she'd asked me for the full amount she claimed was missing, as if nobody else was helping out. And Sophia? She had no clue any of this was going on. So what the hell was Olivia doing with all this cash? If the wedding really was over budget, why not just be honest about who was helping? And if they weren't actually short on money, where was it all going? Even with all my doubts, I couldn't risk ruining Sophia's wedding with accusations I couldn't back up. My daughter's happiness had to come first. I needed the whole picture before deciding what to do about whatever game Olivia was playing. I pulled up a new spreadsheet and started listing everything I knew: who gave money, how much, and the story Olivia told them. Not enough to prove anything yet, but it was a start. I went ahead and wrote the check Olivia asked for, not for her sake, but for Sophia's. Meanwhile, I planned to keep digging into what was really going on with all this wedding money. I stared at the check for $15,000. My name scrawled at the bottom in blue pen looked so small for such a big amount. I'd signed my name the same way on everything from Sophia's first bank account when she was 12 to the mortgage for the house Olivia kept after the divorce. I put the check in an envelope but left it unsealed. It didn't feel right to commit without knowing more facts. My work habits were kicking in, always double-check before you act, but Sophia's wedding was coming up fast. I couldn't risk ruining her big day if Olivia actually needed the money. I pulled into the driveway of my old house about 40 minutes later. The two-story colonial with those blue shutters Olivia used to make me repaint constantly hadn't changed at all. But the garden was a mess, something she never would have allowed when we were married. I hadn't planned to drop off the check in person. But after talking to Madison, William, and everyone else, I needed to see how Olivia would react when I handed it to her. When she opened the door, she looked shocked for a second before putting on her poker face. "Michael? I wasn't expecting you." Her hair was in a loose bun and she was wearing some fancy-looking loungewear that probably cost more than all my weekend clothes combined. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. I was nearby and thought I'd just drop this off in person." I held up the envelope with the check inside. "For the wedding." "Oh," she looked surprised. "That's thoughtful of you. Want to come in for a minute?" I followed her inside. There was new artwork in the entryway, some abstract thing that definitely wasn't there last time I visited. The dining room table was covered with papers and Olivia rushed ahead of me, stuffing them into folders. "Sorry about the mess," she said, shoving contracts and spreadsheets into a leather folder. "Wedding planning has completely taken over my life." She wasn't quick enough, though. I saw what looked like vendor contracts, and one number jumped out. $23,500. I tried not to react. "I bet. Sounds like a huge headache." "You have no idea." She let out a big sigh. "It's always something new. The florist just called saying they can't get the exact color roses Sophia wanted." Her phone buzzed on the table, then again. She looked at it, frowned a little, then flipped it over. "How's it going with the venue?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "The Grand Harbor has been super accommodating, but, everything costs money." She took the envelope from me. "This will make all the difference, Michael." "I really appreciate it." Her phone kept buzzing. "Seems like someone really needs to talk to you," I said. "Just Isabella being Isabella," she said, waving it off. "Wedding excitement. She's helping me keep track of all the details." She grabbed her phone, but not before I saw the notification. "Isabella, did you update the wedding fund tracking with the—" Olivia quickly silenced it and stuck it in her pocket. "Want some coffee?" "I just made a fresh pot." "No thanks, I should get going. I have a client meeting in 30 minutes. A handy lie to explain why I couldn't stay long. "I hope that helps with the venue deposit." "The deposit was due weeks ago," she said, looking confused for a second. "But this covers the final payment and some extras. Thanks again." As I headed back to my car, I added up what I'd seen. Hidden contracts, numbers way lower than what she'd been collecting, some fancy new painting, and texts about tracking wedding funds. By itself, maybe nothing, but put it all together, and something wasn't right. That night, I called 5 more family members. They all told me basically the same thing. Olivia had personally reached out, said wedding costs had suddenly gone up, and made them feel like their money was saving Sophia's big day. My cousin Robert gave $1,000 after Olivia told him the florist needed to be paid right away. Uncle David put in $2,500 because she claimed the photographer might back out without a bigger deposit. By bedtime, I'd found out about another $8,500 from relatives. Add that to what I already knew about, and family had given at least $21,000. Not counting my $15,000 or whatever Olivia had put in herself. I was typing the last amount into my sheet when my phone rang. It was Sophia's picture lighting up my screen. "Hey, Dad," she said when I picked up, sounding happy and excited. I just wanted to call and say thank you. Mom told me what you did. I felt sick. What exactly did she say? That you came through with a really big check for the wedding. She said it pretty much saved everything. Sophia's voice got more serious. She told me she tried asking other family members, but nobody else could help much. So your money is basically making it all possible. I shut my eyes, trying to sound normal. I want your day to be special, honey. It means so much, especially since I know things between you and Mom haven't always been great. The fact that you're both working together on this, it just means everything to me. I felt even worse hearing her believe such a huge lie. Nobody else could help much when Madison gave $2,000 from her pension? When the family together gave more than I did? You know I'd do anything for you, Soph. I know, Dad. That's why I love you, she paused. Oh, Daniel's calling on the other line. Probably wedding stuff. I'll see you at the rehearsal dinner next week. Wouldn't miss it. After we hung up, I looked at my spreadsheet. There was no innocent explanation for the difference between what Olivia told Sophia and what I'd found out. This wasn't a mix-up or misunderstanding. She was deliberately lying. I added a new column to my spreadsheet called Story Told. I wrote down what tale Olivia had spun for each family member to get their money. It was obvious she'd custom-made each sob story, playing up different emergencies to make everyone think their money was especially important. Part of me was almost impressed by how well her trick had worked, but mostly as Sophia's dad, I was just pissed off. I thought about calling Olivia right away to call her out, but what good would that do? She'd just deny everything, say I misunderstood, and probably make up some crisis that would turn me into the bad guy if I kept pushing. Plus, I still didn't know exactly how far this went, so it seemed too early to make a move. No, I needed better. Proof. Something so solid nobody could argue with it, especially Sophia. Next morning, while getting ready for work, my phone dinged. I glanced at it without thinking much, then stopped dead in my tracks. It was from Isabella, but obviously meant for someone else. Liv. Congrats on hitting the $30,000 mark. We should celebrate when this wedding madness is over. Question. How are we tracking the additional $15,000 from Michael? Separate spreadsheet or add to the master list? I've updated our tracking sheet with everyone's contributions and notes on who was told what story. Let me know if you need any adjustments before our spa weekend planning call. She'd attached a file called Wedding Fund Tracking Final.xlsx. I stared at my phone, totally forgetting about my coffee. $30,000 from family members before what I was putting in. A master list keeping track of who got told which lie, and they were planning a freaking spa weekend. This wasn't just stretching the truth when it was convenient. They were straight up scamming family members who just wanted to make Sophia happy. My fingers trembled as I forwarded the message to my email with the attachment. I downloaded the file to my computer and clicked it open. The file proved everything I'd suspected, and then some. 47 family members and close friends had given money, from $200 all the way up to Madison's $2,000 and William's $3,000. For each person, they'd written notes about which emergency story they'd used and whether that person might chat with other donors. A tab called Actuals showed what the wedding really cost. $23,500 for everything at the Grand Harbor. Venue, food, flowers, photos, music, the works. Another tab marked Post-Wedding listed what they planned to buy. Some fancy designer purse, a weekend at some ritzy spa, and new clothes. I couldn't believe how organized their scam was. This wasn't just Olivia's usual tricks. They'd put serious effort into using our daughter's wedding to rake in cash. I closed the file and just sat there. Now I had proof. But what the hell was I supposed to do with it? If I called them out, it would mess up things for Sophia and her big day. But I couldn't just let Olivia cash in on everyone's generosity while feeding our daughter a bunch of lies either. Looking at the numbers on my screen, I knew one thing for sure. This was way too big to just let slide. I had to figure out when and how to blow the whistle without ruining Sophia's wedding. I needed a plan. She's been keeping track of who she told what story? Ethan nearly spat out his coffee. That's a whole new level of sneaky even for Olivia. We were tucked away in the corner of Cornerstone Cafe, where the morning crowd had finally thinned out enough for us to talk. I'd sent Isabella's text to Ethan before we met up, but seeing the actual spreadsheet had shut him up completely, something that hardly ever happens with my brother. And she's already booked. The spa weekend, I said, scrolling through the file on my laptop. Plus a wardrobe refresh and this fancy handbag that costs more than I paid for my first car. Ethan's face darkened. You need to call her right now. This isn't just taking advantage of your family, it's straight up scamming them. Not yet. I shut my laptop. I need better proof before I say anything to her. Better? Ethan pointed at where the screen had been. Mike, she literally sent you a spreadsheet of all her lies. What more do you want? A video confession. I shook my head. If I call her out now, she'll just claim it's all a big misunderstanding. She'll say the spreadsheet was just planning stuff, or Isabella got it wrong. I need to check with more people who gave money and find out what the wedding actually costs. While you're playing detective, she's out there blowing everyone's cash. I know. I felt sick thinking about it. But if I'm going to call her out, especially with Sophia in the middle of this, I've got to be 100% sure about everything. Ethan leaned back, looking me over. So you're really going to expose her then? Not just talk to her in private? What else can I do? Let her pocket over 20 grand from family who thought they were helping Sophia? Let her keep lying to our daughter? I shook my head. No way. This has to come out. I just need to figure out how to do it without wrecking Sophia's wedding. Without wrecking it? Ethan laughed. Her mom is using her wedding as an ATM. It's already messed up. That's why I got to be careful about this. I checked my watch. I'm meeting Daniel's parents for lunch in an hour. I want to hear what story Olivia fed them. Ethan raised an eyebrow. The in-laws? That's pretty bold. They put in money too. They deserve to know. So what's your plan here? Confront her before the wedding? I thought about it. No, that would just create a huge mess during what should be Sophia's big day. I'm thinking maybe at the reception, after the ceremony, when it can't mess up the actual wedding. Public humiliation, Ethan nodded, looking pleased. Nice. It's not about humiliation. It's about honesty. But honestly, I couldn't help feeling a little satisfied thinking about Olivia finally getting caught. I gotta go. I'll call you after I talk to the Johnsons. Michael? Ethan stopped me as I got up. Just remember, sometimes all your careful planning is just a fancy way of stalling. Don't let Olivia get away with this because you're waiting for the perfect time to do something. His words stuck with me during my drive to Salvatore's, the restaurant Robert and Emily Johnson picked as a halfway point between our offices. I'd only met them a few times at Sophia's engagement parties and wedding prep events, but I liked their no-nonsense attitude and how much they clearly cared about Sophia. Robert stood up when I got to their table and gave me a firm handshake. Michael, good to see you again. Thanks for making time on such short notice, I said as I sat down across from them. Emily gave me a warm smile. We're happy to get to know you better before the wedding. Though I must say, your call sounded pretty serious. It is, unfortunately. I stopped talking when the waiter came for our drink orders. After he left, I carefully continued. I've been looking into the wedding money situation, and I've found some troubling stuff. I wanted to check what you understood about the wedding costs. Robert and Emily looked at each other. We put in $5,000, Robert said. After Olivia explained what was going on. What exactly did she tell you? I kept my tone even. Emily dug through her purse and pulled out her phone. I still have her messages. She got really specific about how changing venues caused budget problems. She scrolled through her texts. Here it is. Unfortunately, Michael's contribution has been disappointingly minimal given his financial situation. I'm trying to make up the difference, but I'm stretched to my limit. My jaw clenched. I'd expected something like this, but actually hearing what Olivia had written made me furious. Would you mind if I looked at those messages? I asked, somehow keeping my voice steady. Emily handed me her phone. I scrolled through their conversation, reading how Olivia claimed she was single-handedly managing the financial burden while saying I had other priorities that kept me from properly supporting our daughter's wedding. This seems to be upsetting you, Robert said quietly. It is, I admitted, because none of it's true. I put in $15,000 for Sophia's wedding, plus family members who together gave over $30,000. Emily's eyes got big. $30,000? On top of your 15? Yes, and from what I've found out, the whole wedding at the Grand Harbor cost about $23,000. Robert's face darkened. You're saying she's collected almost twice what's needed? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I glanced toward the bathroom. Would you excuse me for a minute? In the bathroom, I took out my phone and carefully photographed all the text messages from Emily's phone. The evidence kept piling up, but each new piece made me feel worse about what Olivia was doing, not just to me or our relatives, but to Sophia herself. When I got back to the table, our food had arrived, though none of us seemed very hungry anymore. I'm sorry for bringing this up during what should have been a nice lunch, I said, but I thought you deserved to know what's really going on. We appreciate your honesty, Emily said. It's clear you're being thoughtful about this, instead of just reacting. That says a lot about you. Robert nodded. What are you planning to do with all this? I'm still figuring that out. At the very least, everyone who put money in should know where it actually went. The hard part is doing this without turning Sophia's wedding into a complete disaster. That's a tough spot to be in, Robert agreed. If we can help at all, just let us know. We care about Sophia too. That means a lot, and I want you to know, no matter what Olivia might have said, I've always been totally committed to supporting Sophia with money and everything else. We never doubted that, Emily said kindly. Even though we've only met you a handful of times, we can tell from how Sophia talks about you. The way she lights up when she mentions her dad tells us everything we need to know. I kept thinking about what the Johnsons said during my drive home after lunch. They promised to pass along anything else Olivia might send them, and I said I'd keep them in the loop about what I found. It was nice having people on my side who got why finding the truth mattered, while still looking out for Sophia. At home, I cleared off my dining table and set up my laptop and notepad. Sophia used to laugh at my obsession with organizing everything when she was little. She called it my command center. I made a simple document with 3 sections: who gave money, what proof I had, and when everything happened. I listed everyone I knew had contributed money, how much they gave, and what story Olivia had told each person. So far, family and friends had pitched in $35,000, plus my $15,000. For evidence, I saved screenshots of Isabella's text, that tracking spreadsheet, and the photos showing Emily's texts with Olivia. I also made a timeline showing when Olivia had asked different family members for money, with her stories getting more desperate as the wedding got closer. Then I checked Olivia's Instagram, which I almost never look at. Her recent post told me plenty. A selfie with an expensive Saint Laurent bag saying, "Sometimes you have to treat yourself." A booking confirmation for a weekend at the Mandarin Oriental Spa with Isabella. Post-wedding relaxation booked. Deserve this. And a photo of her bed covered in shopping bags from fancy stores captioned, "Wedding stress shopping is real." None of these proved anything by themselves, but combined with her claims about being stretched beyond her limits with money, the woman was clearly lying. I looked up the Grand Harbor Hotel's website and found their wedding packages. The premium celebration package with everything Sophia had described cost $24,995 for up to 150 guests. I needed to check one more thing. I called a number I hadn't used in years. James Sullivan speaking. "James, it's Michael Lawson. Been a while." "Mike, how have you been? Must be, 5 years since the Richardson account?" At least that James and I had worked together on a project before he quit finance to work in hotels. According to Sophia, he now ran events at Grand Harbor. "I'm calling about my daughter Sophia's wedding next Saturday." "Right. Of course, you guys have a beautiful setup planned. One of our nicer events this season, though not our most extravagant. That's why I'm calling. I'm trying to figure out the actual final costs. There seems to be some confusion between what was quoted and what's been collected." James paused. "I should probably be talking to the contract holder about this. That would be my ex-wife, Olivia. But since I'm paying for a big chunk of it, I need to know the real total. Let me check that for you." I heard typing in the background. Here we go. The total package comes to $23,500, which covers the ceremony space, reception for 150 people, basic flowers, DJ, photos, and the 3-course dinner. It's a bit cheaper than our top package since they skipped the champagne fountain and ice sculpture. And that's the final amount? No outstanding balances? No, it's been paid in full. Final payment went through 3 weeks ago. I thanked him and hung up, looking at my notes. Just as I thought. Olivia had collected around $50,000 for a wedding that cost $23,500. The other $26,500 was paying for her shopping trips, spa weekends, and whatever else she had planned. I couldn't believe she'd do something so brazen. Lying to me was one thing, but she'd lied to dozens of family members, friends, and worst of all, to Sophia herself. I put together one last document with everything I'd found. Who gave what money, all the different stories Olivia told each person, the real wedding costs, and proof she planned to spend the extra cash on herself. I printed several copies, put them in folders, then stuck them in my briefcase. The wedding was in 3 days. I'd let the ceremony happen without drama. Sophia deserved at least that. But during the reception's special thanks part, when Olivia would surely brag about her sacrifices for the perfect day, that seemed like the right time for the truth. As I closed my briefcase, I didn't feel any of the satisfaction I expected. Just the knowledge that this lie was too big to ignore no matter what happened afterward. I drove through Boston's evening traffic with my briefcase full of evidence in the back seat, heading to the restaurant. Olivia had picked Il Giardino, this fancy new Italian place with a 3-month waiting list that somehow made room for our 30-person rehearsal dinner. Pretty funny that we were celebrating at a place called The Garden, when the actual garden venue for the wedding had supposedly fallen through. I got there 15 minutes early and stashed my briefcase in the trunk. Tonight wasn't about exposing anything, it was about Sophia and Daniel. I'd deal with all that after the wedding. I kept reminding myself of this as I handed my keys to the valet. "Michael?" Madison called from near the entrance, waving energetically. Perfect timing. I was just about to head in. I smiled genuinely for what felt like the first time that day. "You look lovely, Madison." "This old thing?" She smoothed her lavender dress. "I've had it for years. Not all of us can afford designer wardrobes on teachers' pensions." She gave me a knowing look. Though I hear Olivia's managed just fine, even with all her supposed money troubles with the wedding. I kept my face blank. "You've seen her recently?" "Instagram," Madison said simply. "I may be old, but I know how to use a smartphone." That Saint Laurent bag she posted didn't look like something someone stretched beyond their limits would buy. But what do I know about fashion these days? Before I could respond, Robert and Emily Johnson walked up, both looking sharp. "Michael," Robert extended his hand. "Good to see you again." Emily leaned in for a brief hug. "Any news since our lunch?" "Nothing I can talk about here," I said quietly. "But thanks for asking." Robert nodded. "We're at table 3 according to the chart. I guess the parents aren't sitting together." "Of course we aren't," I murmured. The restaurant's private room looked nice, but not over the top. White tablecloths, pretty flowers, and soft lighting. Sophia, Daniel, and their wedding party had a table at the front, while family members sat at 5 round tables throughout the room. I found my name card at table 4 between my cousin Emma and Daniel's great-aunt. The main family table, where Olivia sat with her sister Isabella and Daniel's parents, was right up front. Just another way to keep me on the outside of my daughter's celebration. Sophia rushed over while I was finding my seat. She wore a white cocktail dress and looked beautiful. "Dad, you're here." She hugged me tight. "Can you believe it's finally happening? After all the planning and—" "Sophia!" Olivia's voice cut through our moment. "The photographer wants to get some family shots before everyone sits down." I followed them to the photo area. The photographer was arranging people in front of a floral backdrop. "Let's do one with just the bride and her parents," she suggested. "Perfect," Olivia said, moving next to Sophia and pointing to a spot off to the side. "Michael, you can stand over there." "Actually," Sophia interrupted, "I'd like my dad on my other side, please." She reached for my hand and pulled me closer. Olivia looked annoyed for a second before putting on her camera-ready smile. "Whatever you want, sweetheart. It's your special day." The photographer took a bunch of pictures before asking for different groups. Each time Olivia somehow moved things around, putting me in the back row for big group shots or at the far end for others. She did it so smoothly that probably no one but me noticed. Classic Olivia, she'd spent years controlling how everyone saw things. Now just Sophia with her mother, the photographer said. And then one with just her father, Sophia added right away. When it was finally our turn, Sophia whispered, "Sorry about all that. Mom's been a little crazy lately. Wedding stuff, I guess." "It's fine," I told her, putting my arm around her shoulders. "All that matters is that you're happy." "I am," she smiled. "And I'm so glad you and Mom worked together on everything. I know it wasn't easy." The photographer got that moment on camera, my smile stiffening a bit, as I heard another hint about Olivia's lies. During dinner, I kept an eye on the room while chatting with the people at my table. From where I sat, I could see Olivia running the show at the family table, laughing and touching Sophia's arm every so often, playing the perfect devoted mother. Robert Johnson caught my eye from across the room and gave a tiny nod. We'd talked briefly yesterday, and he'd confirmed that Olivia had texted Emily again, this time complaining they'd had to scale back some elements because of money. When the toast started, Daniel's father went first, saying nice things about welcoming Sophia into their family. Next came the best man with funny stories, and the maid of honor with her teary speech about her friendship with Sophia. Then Olivia stood up, champagne glass in hand, her eyes already watery with perfectly timed emotion. "When Sophia was little," she began, her voice shaky with fake feeling, "I used to dream about her wedding day. I promised myself I'd do everything I could to make it perfect for her." She stopped for effect. What I never expected was just how hard that would be. She looked around the room, making eye contact with several relatives who'd given big checks. "I want to thank everyone for their modest support. Every little bit has helped during this tough money situation." My Uncle William, who'd given $3,000, squirmed in his seat. "As a single mother," Olivia went on, somehow making her $90,000 alimony in the paid-off house sound like she was broke, "I've had to give up everything to create this special weekend for my daughter. Some nights I couldn't sleep wondering how I'd pull it all off." Across the room, Madison's eyebrows shot up. But that's what mothers do, right? We sacrifice. Olivia wiped her eyes with a napkin. So, seeing everything come together, knowing I've somehow pulled off this miracle, even with the limitations, is the best reward. The way she said limitations while glancing my way was an expert move in throwing shade. I took a slow sip of water, trying to stay calm. To Sophia and Daniel, she finished, raising her glass. May your marriage be filled with the kind of selfless love I've always tried to show. Everyone clapped as Olivia sat down, taking tissues from Isabella with practiced grace. Around me, I noticed relatives exchanging confused looks. My cousin Emma leaned over. Didn't she tell you she was collecting from everyone? I gave $1,500 and I know William gave way more. We can talk about it later, I said quietly. Tonight is for Sophia and Daniel. After dinner, while people mingled over coffee and dessert, Sophia found me near the bar. Dad, I never really thanked you for your money, she said, linking her arm through mine. Mom told me it barely covered the venue deposit, but I know it was a lot to come up with, so quickly, I kept my face blank. The deposit? Is that what she said? Yeah, she mentioned the Grand Harbor needed a huge deposit because of the date change. Your $15,000 covered most of it, but she had to figure out the rest. Sophia smiled up at me. I know you guys don't always get along, but it means everything that you both came through for me. The truth hit me hard. My $15,000 alone would have paid for almost 2/3 of the whole wedding. I'd do anything for you, Soph. You know that. I do. She squeezed my arm. Oh, Daniel's waving me over. His grandparents are leaving early. I should say goodbye. As she hurried away, I stepped onto the restaurant's small terrace to get some air. The cool night breeze helped a bit, but not enough to block out the voices coming through the half-open door behind me. I still can't believe we pulled it off. Isabella's voice, a little drunk from champagne. When are you booking the fancy suite? Already done. Olivia sounded so pleased with herself. The extra wedding money paid for the presidential suite for the whole weekend. Private terrace, personal butler, everything. We deserve it after all this planning, and nobody will ever know. The best part is Michael's check. Using that for the Bermuda trip was genius. Shh, Isabella suddenly whispered. Look who's here. I turned around to find both women standing in the doorway, their faces changing from oh shit to fake casual in about half a second. Michael! Olivia jumped in first. Getting some fresh air? Yeah, really refreshing, I said calmly. Makes things pretty clear out here. Isabella pulled at her sister's arm. We should get back inside. I think they're cutting the cake soon. As they rushed back in, I pulled out my phone and made a call I'd been planning since yesterday. Encore Events, this is Ryan speaking. Ryan, this is Michael Lawson. My daughter Sophia is getting married at the Grand Harbor tomorrow, and I understand you're handling the music. Yes, sir. Everything's ready to go for tomorrow's celebration. Great. I wanted to check that I'll have a mic during the speech part of the reception. Let me look at the schedule. I heard papers rustling. Yes, looks like we have the father of the bride speaking after the mother's welcome. That right? Perfect. Just making sure everything's set up. After hanging up, I stood alone on the terrace, going over what I would say tomorrow. I had all the proof I needed. The spreadsheet tracking every lie. Confirmation of what the wedding actually cost. Olivia's social media showing all her new purchases. The texts spelling out their plans for the extra money. I wouldn't get all emotional or accusatory. Just stick to the facts. Name each person who contributed, state each amount clearly, show the total compared to the actual cost, and make sure key family members got copies of the evidence. I thought about what might happen. Sophia might be mad that I picked her reception for this bombshell. Relatives might confront Olivia right there, causing a scene. The whole party could turn into a mess instead of a celebration. But letting Olivia keep lying to our daughter and pocketing thousands of dollars from family who thought they were helping make Sophia happy? That seemed way worse. My phone buzzed with a text. Sophia's name popped up on the screen, with a message that made my decision final. Mom just told me they had to cut corners on the honeymoon package because we're still over budget. Says we should consider ourselves lucky she could pull off the wedding at all with what she had to work with. I feel awful that she's stressed about money. Should we cancel the wine upgrade for tomorrow? I read the text and felt sick. Olivia had collected $45,000 for a $23,500 ceremony, was planning fancy spa weekends and Bermuda trips with the extra cash, and was still making our daughter feel guilty about the costs. This had to stop. Tomorrow, after Sophia and Daniel said their vows, I'd finally tell everyone what was really going on. I got to St. Mary's 2 hours before the wedding. The church was quiet in the morning sun, with colorful light coming through the stained glass. I wanted some time to get my head straight before everything happened, both the happy stuff and the confrontation I'd planned. The folders were all lined up in my briefcase, one for each family member who'd contributed money. 47 folders, plus an extra copy for Sophia. My briefcase felt heavy as I carried it from my car, and not just because of the paper. "Michael, you're early too," Madison called out across the empty parking lot. She had on her purple dress from last night's dinner with a jacket to block the spring chill. "Figured I'd help out if anything needs doing," I said, giving her a quick hug. "Always the good dad." She patted my arm and lowered her voice. "Though from what I hear, Olivia's running the show. She told your cousin Emma my money barely paid for the chairs, but then told William his cash saved the day when the flower people wanted their money up front." Madison's eyes, still sharp after teaching kids for decades, watched my face carefully. Strange how the same money gets spent differently depending on who she's talking to. "You've noticed that too, huh?" "I taught elementary school for 40 years, Michael. I know when a kid makes up stories to get extra cookies. This is just a grown-up version that costs more." She squeezed my arm. "Whatever you're planning, I'm with you." More cars started pulling in. I greeted everyone warmly, listening as they unknowingly gave me more proof of what Olivia had been doing. My Uncle William talked about how his $3,000 fixed the video guy situation. Emma mentioned that her $1,500 was absolutely needed for the better lights. Cousin Robert told me his $1,000 paid for the fancy cake when the first baker dropped out. Every conversation felt worse than the last. The video, lights, and cake were all part of the package at Grand Harbor. There hadn't been any crisis, no upgrades needed. Just Olivia, making up fake emergencies to get money from everyone. I saw Ethan parking and walked over to meet him. "You good to go?" he asked, fixing his tie. "As good as I'll ever be." "You're doing what needs to be done," he said firmly. "Remember that when things get ugly." "If I can just get through the ceremony first," I replied. "Today should still be about Sophia and Daniel before anything else." Ethan nodded. "Speaking of which, I just saw the Johnsons arriving. They seemed pretty quiet. They know everything. They've been really supportive." As we walked into the church, I saw Robert and Emily talking quietly near the front rows. Robert looked up, caught my eye, and gave me a small nod. That nod meant a lot, another dad who understood what was at stake. The church filled quickly. I got stuck in the front row just feet away from where Olivia would sit, with Madison thankfully between us as a buffer. When Olivia finally walked in 15 minutes before things started, she had on some designer dress I'd never seen, plus what looked like brand new diamond earrings. Another wedding fund purchase, I bet. She gave me a tight smile. "Michael, you clean up nicely." "Thank you." "New earrings?" I couldn't help asking. Something flickered across her face before she touched one of the diamonds. "Just a little something for today. Every mother should look her best at her daughter's wedding." "Of course." I kept my voice even though I was furious. Every mother wants to look good. Not every mother steals from family to fund her luxury lifestyle. The ceremony gave me a break from my anger. When the music started and Sophia appeared at the back of the church, I got choked up. She looked beautiful in a simple A-line gown, her dark hair done up with tiny flowers tucked throughout. Daniel waited at the altar, his whole face lighting up when he saw her. Watching them say their vows, their voices steady and sure, I remembered when love seemed simpler. Back before spreadsheets full of lies. Before stolen money and made-up emergencies. I promised Sophia silently that what I planned to do was out of love. The messy kind that sometimes means telling hard truths. Everyone cheered as the ceremony ended, throwing rice on the church steps. I took a few photos of Sophia and Daniel, both beaming with so much happiness they made the spring day feel warmer. "Dad!" Sophia broke away from the receiving line to hug me. "What did you think?" "You were perfect," I said honestly. "Daniel looks like the happiest man alive." "That's the plan." She grinned. "We'll see you at the reception?" "I can't wait for our dance. Wouldn't miss it for the world." The Grand Harbor Hotel was set up for the reception, but not like Olivia had told people when she asked for money. The ballroom looked nice, but nowhere near what $45,000 should have bought. No ice sculpture, no champagne fountain, no live band. The centerpieces were just simple spring flowers instead of the fancy cascading designs Olivia had described to Madison. The lighting was basic, not the custom package she had told Emma was so important. It matched exactly what I'd expect from the $23,500 standard package James had confirmed. Pretty basic for how much money was collected. Ethan mumbled as we found our table cards. "That was the goal," I said quietly. "Get the most money, spend the least." Robert and Emily Johnson walked up beside us, both looking nice but serious. Michael. Robert shook my hand firmly. Nice ceremony. Yes, Sophia looked beautiful, Emily added, though I can't help noticing the reception seems simpler than what was described to us. You're right about that, I said. We'll talk more later. We sat down for dinner. I was at table 3 with Madison and several cousins, while Olivia sat at the head table with Sophia, Daniel, and his parents. From my seat, I could see Olivia leaning toward Isabella, their heads close together, talking and sometimes breaking into knowing smiles. When it was time for the father-daughter dance, Sophia walked over to me with her hand out. The band started playing What a Wonderful World, and I took my daughter to the dance floor, forgetting everything else for a moment. Thank you, Dad, Sophia said as we moved around the floor. For the dance? It's tradition. No. She smiled up at me. For everything. For paying so much to make today happen. For working with Mom even though I know you two don't get along. It hurt to hear this. Sophia, Mom told me how you stepped up at the last minute when costs went up. She said you didn't even hesitate, even though it was a huge amount. Her eyes were so sincere. It means everything that you both put aside your differences for me. I couldn't swallow. Your happiness has always been what matters most to me. I know that. She put her head on my shoulder briefly as we kept dancing. That's why I'm so lucky. When the dance ended, I went back to my table, my mind made up. This wasn't just about Olivia's lies anymore. It was about my relationship with my daughter being built on lies that made me part of Olivia's scheme just by keeping quiet. Dinner came out course by course, each one looking good but clearly less fancy than what Olivia had promised everyone who contributed. I barely ate, with no appetite because of how tense I felt. Across the room I could see Robert Johnson watching Olivia with obvious dislike. As dessert came out, I noticed Olivia showing Isabella something on her phone, both of them grinning. Isabella's excited squeal traveled across the room. First class? Liv, you didn't. I didn't need to see the screen to know what they were looking at. The Bermuda cruise Isabella had mentioned at the rehearsal dinner, now upgraded to first class with my $15,000 contribution. The DJ's voice interrupted my thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the special moment in our evening, where we'll hear from the parents of our beautiful bride. First, I'd like to invite Olivia Prescott, mother of the bride, to say a few words. Everyone clapped as Olivia stood up and took the microphone. She moved to the center of the small dance floor, her face changing to look so sad and emotional that if I hadn't known better, even I might have believed it. When Sophia was a little girl, she started, her voice breaking, I made her a promise. I told her that someday, when she found her perfect match, I would give her the wedding of her dreams, no matter what it took. She stopped for a second while Isabella quickly handed her a tissue to dab her eyes. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Around the room, family members squirmed in their seats as Olivia kept going. These last few months have been so hard on my bank account. As a single mother trying to put together this magical day with... She paused, glancing my way. Almost no help from some people has been really tough. Madison tensed up next to me. Some nights I couldn't sleep, wondering how I'd make the next payment, if I'd have to tell Sophia we needed to cut back on what she wanted. Olivia's voice shook with fake emotion. But seeing her today, knowing I somehow pulled off this celebration all by myself, makes everything worth it. I grabbed my water glass, needing to do something as I got more and more pissed off. Personal sacrifice. The woman who'd booked a fancy cruise and bought expensive accessories with stolen money was talking about personal sacrifice. So to my beautiful daughter and her wonderful new husband, Olivia lifted her glass, wearing diamond earrings. May your marriage have the same determination and selfless love that got us to this perfect day. People clapped, but it was pretty quiet from those who'd given the big bucks. William looked furious. And now, the DJ said, we'll hear from Michael Lawson, father of the bride. This was it. I felt inside my jacket pocket to make sure the evidence packet was there and stood up. 47 people watched me walk to the microphone. I saw Ethan nod encouragingly, Robert give me a serious look, and Madison give me a subtle thumbs up. As I got close to Olivia to take the mic, her face changed for just a second. A hint of worry quickly covered up with her fake smile. Maybe she sensed her whole story was about to fall apart. I took the microphone from her, our eyes meeting briefly. Right then, I knew for sure that what I was about to do had to happen. Not just for me or the relatives she'd tricked, but in the end, for Sophia too. I turned to face everyone, evidence ready, and stepped into the spotlight. I held the microphone facing a room full of waiting faces. The spotlight felt warm on my skin as I stood in the truth I'd been planning to share for weeks. First, I started, my voice. Steadier than I thought it would be. I want to congratulate Sophia and Daniel. I turned to their table where they sat holding hands, my daughter looking so happy with what I was about to mess up. The ceremony was great, and your vows really touched me. I'm so proud of you, Sophia, and the person you chose to marry. She smiled, looking a bit confused at how formal I sounded. I wanted to give her this normal moment before everything went sideways. A wedding isn't just a ceremony. It's everyone coming together to back a new start. I paused, looking around. And that's exactly what this family did when asked to help with Sophia's big day. Olivia tensed up nearby. She knew something was wrong. Whatever instinct had helped her manipulate people for years was telling her to worry. I want to thank the incredibly generous family members who chipped in to make today happen. I took out a folded paper from my jacket. Madison, my aunt, who gave $2,000 from her teacher's pension. Madison nodded, sitting up straighter as people turned to look at her. My Uncle William, who gave $3,000 when told the photographer needed to be paid right away. William looked shocked, clearly surprised I knew exactly how much and what story he'd been fed. The Johnsons, Daniel's parents, who put in $5,000 after hearing my support, was disappointingly minimal. Robert Johnson stood up slightly, nodding to confirm as people started whispering. My cousin Emma, $1,500. Cousin Robert, $1,000. Uncle David, $2,500. With each name and amount, the room got quieter. Everyone starting to put things together. I went through the whole list, watching it click on face after face. In total, our family members gave just over $30,000 to Sophia's wedding fund. I put down the paper and looked right at Olivia for the first time, which is pretty interesting since this whole wedding at Grand Harbor only cost $23,500. The quiet broke. People started whispering to each other, comparing what they'd been told. I personally gave $15,000, honey, I continued, talking a bit louder over the growing noise. After hearing the wedding fund was exactly $15,000 short, just enough to cover the gap. Olivia stepped forward, trying to look dignified and hurt. Michael, this isn't the right time or place for whatever point you're trying to make. I think it is. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the first evidence packet. The right time is when everyone who gave money is here together. The right place is where we can all see what their generosity actually paid for. I handed the packet to Madison, who opened it right away. There are 47 of these packets, one for each person who contributed. Each one shows what was collected, what was spent, and most importantly, what each person was told about why their specific money was urgently needed. Madison gasped as she looked through it. $2,000 for chair rentals? That's what she told me it would cover. But it says here chair rental was included in the basic package. I handed papers to William, the Johnsons, and other family members who'd given big money. Here's the actual Grand Harbor wedding package cost, screenshots of the tracking sheet Olivia and her sister kept about who they told what and where all the extra money was going. Olivia jumped up and came at me, completely losing it. This is crazy. You're just trying to wreck Sophia's wedding because you're bitter about our divorce. Mom? Sophia stood up. What's Dad talking about? Before Olivia could answer, Robert Johnson got up, holding the papers I'd given him. My wife and I gave $5,000 because we were told Michael barely helped, and you were carrying the financial burden yourself. His voice shut everyone up. So I'd like to know where our money went since Michael actually paid $15,000 for a $23,000 wedding. Olivia looked around the room, thinking fast. I recognized that look from our marriage, the one she got when her old story fell apart and she needed a new one fast. There's been some mix-ups, she started, switching back to her smooth talking voice. Wedding planning gets complicated, with costs always changing, and there weren't any mix-ups. I showed a spreadsheet on the screen behind me. This is the tracking document Isabella accidentally sent me. It shows every payment, every story they made up to get it, and notes about which relatives might talk to each other. People gasped when they saw their names in the document, along with the fake emergencies Olivia had created just for them. Dad? Sophia came over to stand next to me, sounding confused. Can I see? I gave her my complete copy of everything. She took it and flipped through all the lies. You told Uncle William we needed money for a photographer when we never even hired one? She looked at her mom. And you told Aunt Madison her money barely covered chairs when they came with the package? Olivia's face changed from defensive to pleading. Honey, it's your wedding day. We can talk about this later. Your father is obviously... It's all right here in your own spreadsheet. Sophia cut her off, waving the papers. Every lie all tracked and organized. Her voice broke a little. And plans for a spa weekend and Bermuda cruise with the leftover money? Around us, the reception was total chaos. William stood by the exit with his arms crossed, glaring at Olivia. Emma showed her evidence packet to several cousins who looked more and more upset as they compared notes. Madison was next to Sophia with an arm around her shoulders. Olivia took a step toward the door, only to find William blocking her path. "I'd like my $3,000 back," he said. "Now." "This is absurd," Olivia sputtered. "You can't just—" "Actually, we can," Robert Johnson cut in, holding up his evidence packet. "This is fraud, pure and simple." I turned to Sophia, seeing how hurt she was. "I'm sorry about the timing," I said quietly, just for her. "I truly am. But I couldn't let this continue, couldn't let everyone believe they'd contributed to a fake emergency, couldn't let you think your mother had sacrificed everything while I'd barely helped." Sophia's eyes filled with tears as her happiness turned to anger. "All those nights you said you couldn't sleep because you were worried about wedding costs," she said, turning to Olivia. "All while you were booking spa weekends with money from Dad's family?" "It wasn't like that," Olivia protested, but she wasn't so confident anymore. "Everything I did was for you, to make your day special. By lying to everyone who loves me? By making me think Dad barely contributed when he gave more than enough to cover most of the wedding." Sophia's voice rose with each question. "How exactly was that for me?" Daniel showed up beside Sophia and put his arm around her waist. He looked at me for a moment, not angry, just thinking. Then he gave me a small nod I wasn't expecting. "I think that's enough for now," he said, taking the microphone from my hand. The room got quiet, probably relieved someone was taking charge of the mess. "First, I want to thank Michael for his honesty," Daniel said calmly. "While the timing is rough, the truth was going to come out eventually, and I believe everyone who contributed needed to know where their money went." He turned to address the room. "This is still our wedding day. Sophia and I have exchanged our vows, and that's what matters most. I suggest we continue celebrating that while legal matters concerning the funds can be addressed in the coming days." He looked toward his father. "Dad, I know you and Mom want answers, just like everyone else who gave money. I promise we'll deal with this properly, but maybe not in the middle of our reception." Robert nodded reluctantly, though he kept staring at Olivia with obvious disgust. "As for the money," Daniel continued, "I believe Sophia and I should have a say in how this is resolved, since it was collected in our name." He squeezed Sophia's hand. "We'll make sure everyone's contributions are properly accounted for." His practical approach seemed to ease some tension in the room. The DJ, seeing a chance to help, started playing music again, not the upbeat dance songs from earlier, but something softer in the background to help smooth things over. Sophia just stood there next to Daniel, crying silently as she stared at her mother. You could see how betrayed she felt, the kind of hurt that permanently changes how you see someone. William still blocked Olivia's path to the exit. "We're not finished discussing this," he said. Olivia looked around the room frantically, but nobody was on her side. Even Isabella had backed away, to a corner, frantically typing on her phone, probably deleting evidence. "I need some air," Sophia said suddenly, heading toward the terrace doors. Daniel followed right away, along with Madison and the Johnsons, all surrounding the bride protectively. I stayed put, watching Olivia's years of lies fall apart right in front of everyone. Her designer earrings now just looked like what they really were, not proof she'd sacrificed anything, but proof she'd been lying the whole time. I spotted Olivia across the crowded reception and our eyes met. For a second, I saw something rare in all our time together. Her with nothing to say, no comeback ready. Just standing there, facing her own lies, finally dealing with something she couldn't talk her way out of. I didn't feel any satisfaction seeing her like that, just felt tired. Loving someone sometimes means you have to stop accepting their comfortable lies, even when that's the harder choice. Chapter 7. Madison called at 7:15 the morning after the wedding. I was lying there staring at my ceiling, trying to make sense of everything that happened, when her name popped up on my phone. "You did the right thing," she said right away. I couldn't sleep at all. I skipped fixing my damn cavity to give her that $2,000, and she blew it on a spa weekend. "I'm sorry about your tooth, Madison." "Don't you dare apologize. You're not the one who should be." Her tone got gentler. "Any word from Sophia?" "Nothing yet." I felt sick to my stomach. I figured I'd give her some breathing room. By lunchtime, 8 more relatives had called. William wanted to know how to file in small claims court. Emma wondered if she needed a lawyer for the $1,500 she'd lost. Uncle David was talking about pressing criminal charges instead of just suing. Who keeps spreadsheets of their own BS? My cousin Robert asked when he called. That's next level crazy. Someone who couldn't risk telling you one story and your sister another, I said. I work with data for a living, so I was weirdly impressed by how organized the whole scam was, even though it made me angry as hell to see what she'd done to my daughter. The phone kept ringing for days. Some family members were furious, others were hurt, but everyone was glad to finally know the truth, messy as it was. I answered their questions, but brushed off their thanks. I hadn't told everyone about Olivia to get a pat on the back. I couldn't let my daughter's relationship with me and the whole family be built on nothing but lies. What I didn't tell anyone was how much I worried about Sophia. Daniel texted me a quick, "We're okay. Need time," the morning after the reception. They went on their honeymoon as planned, but I knew her happiness had been completely ruined. Even though the truth needed to come out, I still wrecked what should have been her perfect day. 2 weeks later, my doorbell rang on a Wednesday night. I opened up to find Sophia and Daniel standing there, looking worn, out but determined. "You're back," I blurted out, surprised to see them early. "Thought you were in Hawaii until next week." "We cut the trip short," Daniel said as I let them in. Sophia stayed quiet, looking at me with eyes that seemed different somehow, like she'd changed since I last saw her. No makeup, hair in a simple ponytail, nothing like the glowing bride from before. "Want anything?" I asked, trying to get a read on her mood. "Coffee? Water?" "I found bank statements," Sophia said out of nowhere, dropping her purse on my coffee table. "At Mom's house. 3 days ago." I sat down slowly, letting her take her time. "We came back because I couldn't enjoy Hawaii knowing—" She shook her head. "I kept thinking about what you showed everyone. Had to see for myself." She pulled some folded papers from her purse. "So I went to the house while Mom was at yoga. Still have a key." Daniel put his hand on her shoulder. "Tell him what you found, Soph." "Account records showing she took your 15 grand and put it right into her personal savings the day after you gave it to her." Sophia spoke in a flat tone that worried me way more than if she'd been crying. "Plus a $6,500 cruise booking." The memo line said, "Compensation for wedding stress." I almost grabbed the documents but stopped myself. "Can I see?" She nodded, sliding the papers toward me. The proof was worse than what I'd shown at the reception. Olivia hadn't even tried to hide the transfers, probably thinking nobody would ever check. Next to the cruise booking was a receipt for those diamond earrings she wore to the wedding, $3,200. "I'm so sorry, Sophia," I said, looking up. "This must be rough." "Don't say sorry." Her voice broke a little, finally showing some emotion. "You tried telling me for years that Mom had issues with money. I just didn't want to believe it. You wanted to think the best of your mother." "That makes sense." "I asked her about it," Sophia continued, fidgeting nervously. "I showed her these and asked what was going on." Daniel frowned. It didn't go well. She said I was invading her privacy by looking through her stuff, that the money was hers to use however she wanted, since she did all the work planning the wedding. Sophia's voice got a bit louder. When I told her that family members gave specific amounts for specific things, she said all contributions were unconditional gifts, and she didn't have to explain anything to anyone. "That's what she's telling everyone now," Daniel added. "A bunch of relatives have already called her about getting their money back, and she's saying everything was freely given with no strings attached." "She's totally wrong," I said firmly. "Both legally and morally. She asked for money for a specific reason under false pretenses. She claims you set this whole thing up to turn me against her." Sophia looked straight at me, searching my face. "That you've always been jealous of me and her, and this was your way of ruining our relationship." I kept my cool even though I was furious. "Do you believe that?" "No," she said right away. "Not after finding these." She tapped the bank statements. "But Dad, why did you wait until the reception?" Why not tell me before? The question I'd been dreading. I didn't have solid proof until just before the wedding. I was still checking everything out, following the money trail. I leaned in. "I didn't want to wreck your big day with stuff I couldn't back up. And I figured, once you were already married, finding out would suck less than having to call everything off." Daniel nodded. "I told Sophia the same thing. If you'd come to us earlier, we might have put everything on hold to figure it out. The ceremony itself was still perfect. But the reception wasn't," I said. "And I'm sorry for that part. I should have found a better time, a better way. There is no good way to learn your mother stole from your family to book herself a luxury cruise," Sophia said, her voice sharp. "At least this way, everyone heard the same truth at once. No more secrets, no more separate stories." We sat in silence for a moment until Daniel spoke up. "We've made some decisions about what's next. My parents have offered us their guest house while we sort out our finances." "Sort out your finances?" I frowned. "I thought you were both doing well with your jobs." We are," Sophia said. "But we emptied our savings for what Mom told us were essential wedding expenses. Things she claimed weren't covered in the basic package. Extra $5,000 for the photographer's additional hours, $3,000 for the premium flowers, none of which actually happened. My jaw dropped. She took money from you too? Not directly. Daniel shook his head. But she'd call Sophia about budget emergencies and push us to pay for specific things that were non-negotiable for a proper wedding. We sent about $12,000 total to her wedding account, which apparently doesn't exist, Sophia added. The account number she gave us was her personal checking account. Jesus! I ran my hand through my hair. I had no idea she'd gone after you two as well. We didn't know it was just us, Daniel said. We thought everyone was chipping in for these special elements. That's how she sold it to us. Your family was handling the basics, and we were adding the special touches. Is there anything I can do to help? I asked. Financially, I mean. I can... No, Sophia cut in. But thank you, we'll be fine. Daniel's parents are great, and the guest house will let us save up again. It's just hard knowing Mom saw us as just another ATM. Her voice cracked when she said Mom, and for the first time since I arrived, she started to cry. Daniel put his arm around her. The worst part is that she still won't admit she did anything wrong. Sophia wiped her eyes. She keeps saying everyone misunderstood that wedding planning is complicated, that she deserved payment for her efforts. That's classic Olivia, I said quietly. She's never been able to admit when she's crossed a line. I always thought that was just your side of things, Sophia said. That you were being hard on her because of the divorce. But now I get it. It's like, who is this person? I don't even recognize her anymore. The conversation went on for another hour. Sophia switched between clear-headed analysis of her mom's behavior and moments when raw grief broke through. Daniel sat beside her the whole time, supportive but not trying to fix her feelings. I liked him more by the minute. When they headed out, Sophia gave me a big hug at the door. Thank you, she whispered. Not just for the wedding thing, but for always being straight with me, even when it hurts. Watching them drive away, I felt both justified and sad. She needed to hear the truth, but it had cost her something important, her complete trust in her mom. 3 months after the wedding, William called with news from court. We won, he said, sounding pumped. The judge is making Olivia pay back every cent plus interest. Wait, you all filed together? I asked, surprised they'd teamed up. 14 of us got our small claims cases heard on the same day. Your evidence was fantastic, Mike. That tracking spreadsheet especially, the judge called it proof she knew exactly what she was doing. What did Olivia say? William let out a dry laugh. She waltzed in wearing expensive clothes, trying to charm everyone. First called it a mix-up, then said the spreadsheet was just ideas she never used. When that bombed, she claimed the money was all gifts. Finally got desperate and told the judge you turned us against her because you're still angry about your divorce. I bet that didn't go over well. The judge cut her off and said, Ms. Prescott, the evidence shows you kept asking for money for wedding stuff that either wasn't real or cost way less than you claimed. This court finds that completely unacceptable. William couldn't hide how pleased he was. You should have seen her face when he ordered her to pay everything back, plus 5% interest within 30 days. Is she actually going to pay? She doesn't have a choice. The judgment's binding, and if she doesn't pay up, we can go after her paycheck. Plus, other relatives are filing their own cases now that we've won this one. After hanging up, I took a minute with the news. I wasn't feeling the victory rush I expected. It was more like a quiet relief that the system worked, that people couldn't just lie and cheat without consequences. Sophia and Daniel had moved into the Johnsons' guest house by then, a cute little converted carriage house on their property in Brookline. I went over for dinner one evening in October, and they seemed happy and settled in their cozy space. Mom's trying to fix her reputation. Sophia told me as we had dessert. She's telling anyone who'll listen that you masterminded this whole thing to get back at her, and that family members are just jumping on the bandwagon because they never liked her. Is anyone buying it? I asked. Daniel shook his head. Not that we know of. Robert and Emily said some of her friends called them with questions, but once they explained the evidence and what the court decided, even her best friends seemed to back off. She keeps texting me these articles about parental alienation, Sophia added with an eye roll, as if calling out actual fraud is somehow the same as poisoning a kid against their parent with made-up stories. Do you still talk to her? I asked. Barely. Sophia ran her finger along the tablecloth. I can't cut her off completely, she's still my mother. But I've made some rules. No money talk whatsoever. She doesn't get to be alone with our kids when we have them, and she can't trash talk the rest of the family to me. How's she handling that? About as well as you'd expect, Daniel snorted. Lots of crying and claiming everyone's brainwashing Sophia. She totally misses the irony, Sophia added with a sad smile. By Thanksgiving, things had mostly calmed down. Most family members had gotten their court-ordered money back, though Olivia waited until the very last day of the 30-day window to pay up. Sophia told me her mom was now spinning a new story about how she'd been generous enough to return gifts that were freely given, just to keep peace in the family. Typical Olivia, Ethan said when I mentioned this during our morning coffee. She'll never admit she lost. She just makes it sound like she did everyone a favor. At least it's over, I said. Sophia can move on without all that stress. Speaking of moving on, Ethan leaned in. What are you doing for Christmas this year? Doesn't Olivia usually host that big thing at the house? I hadn't thought that far ahead. For the last 7 years, Christmas meant an awkward gathering at my old home, where I'd show up at my assigned time, exchange gifts, and leave right when my time slot ended, while Olivia played perfect host to the extended family all day long. I don't know, I said. Maybe just something small with Sophia and Daniel. Or, Ethan suggested, you could host it this year. Make the holiday yours again. I loved the idea, and before I could chicken out, I sent invites to family members for Christmas dinner at my condo. I spent weeks getting ready, moving furniture around to fit 15 people, buying a proper dining table to replace my tiny one, and looking up recipes that wouldn't show everyone how bad I was at cooking. The day came with light snow falling, giving Boston that Christmas card look you usually only see in movies. I'd been up since dawn, checking everything over and over like a nervous wreck. By the time the doorbell rang with the first guest, my condo smelled like roasting. Turkey and cinnamon with a fire going in the fireplace I hardly ever use. Madison showed up first with her famous cranberry sauce, followed right after by Ethan and his girlfriend Rebecca. William and his wife brought pies, and Robert and Emily Johnson came with wine and a casserole, just in case. One by one, the family filled my place with the happy mess of everyone talking over each other and laughing. When Sophia and Daniel got here, she looked around with big eyes. Dad, this is amazing. I don't think I've ever seen you throw a party this big. First time for everything, I said, hugging her back. I guess I've been hiding these party skills even from myself. Without Olivia around, the family felt different in small but important ways. People talked more freely without her always steering the conversation. Everyone mingled between groups without the pecking order she'd always set up. Even relatives who used to seem standoffish with me were chattier, like something had changed. After dinner, while everyone sat in the living room having coffee and dessert, I found myself watching Sophia from across the room. She was sitting between Madison and Emily, cracking up at something William was saying, looking more relaxed than I'd seen in forever. Daniel caught my eye from his spot by the fire and lifted his mug slightly, a little nod that made me feel good. Later, as people started heading out with leftovers and hugs, Sophia pulled me aside into the quieter kitchen. This was really special, Dad, she said. Everyone's been saying it was the best holiday get-together in years. I just provided the space, I said, brushing it off. Everyone else brought the holiday spirit. No, it was more than that. She leaned against the counter. You made a different kind of space. One where people could just be themselves without tiptoeing around or trying to impress anyone. I hadn't thought about it that way, but she was right. The vibe had been totally different from Olivia's super-controlled parties, where everything from who sat where to what people talked about had to fit her perfect blended family picture. Dad, Sophia continued, looking more serious, Daniel and I have been talking about our future. We're checking out houses, nothing crazy, just something small to start. Could you help us with the money stuff? Like looking at mortgages, figuring out what we can actually afford? I wasn't expecting that. Sure, but Daniel's dad works in finance too. He'd probably love to help. We already talked to him about investments, she said, but I want your take on the practical budget stuff. She looked me in the eye. I trust you to be straight with me about money, Dad. That means a lot. Hearing her say she trusted me hit me hard. After all those months of spreadsheets, collecting evidence, those tough conversations, and even the public arguments, it all led to this simple moment where my daughter trusted me again. As I closed the door, behind the last guests, the first holiday I'd hosted in years, I realized that exposing Olivia's lies wasn't just about setting things right. It was about making room for something better after all the dishonesty, building a family based on hard truths instead of comfortable lies. Standing in my quiet condo, looking at the messy aftermath, dirty plates, chairs out of place, someone's forgotten scarf, I felt thankful for all that painful honesty that made this fresh start possible.